Hey guys, good morning. Today we're going to discuss one-handed shooting. There's several things that we're going to talk about that's going to enhance your overall ability to perform and get better and be confident with shooting one hand. In my game, in IPSC or USPSA, action shooting, when we shoot one hand, we have to be both accurate and fast at the same time. So we can't really neglect one or the other. Some people will just start to slow down in one hand. And that's why the overall performance behind the gun with one hand is very important, because I want the gun to recycle the same exact way in terms of recoil management. And then how I manipulate the trigger is also what's going to allow me to be able to increase my accuracy or maintain some sort of level of accuracy on there.
Brought to you by Shooters Global. We created the advanced training system and next-gen shot timers to help you progress faster.
The first thing I want to talk about is your body structure. I learned this from Lena Mikulik when we were talking about shotgun last year. It's very similar to her stance, right? Like you get linear essentially, except for mine, I do a little bit more wider because I have to cover transitions and stuff like that. And I have to also move out of position. So the biggest thing is if I'm shooting right hand, my strong hand for now, my side, I like to put my right foot forward, pointing to the general direction of the target. And I'm gonna have my support leg, my left leg, somewhere in this general area to cover a wider transition. So if I have to transition from here, all the way to here, you can see I start shifting my weight a little bit because I always want my weight forward. That's gonna allow me to mitigate the pushback from the gun, allowing for the gun to return a lot more consistently, right? So it looks something like this. This is my natural shooting stance, right? This is my strong hand shooting stance, my one-handed strong hand shooting stance. As you can see, I lean into it where the toes, my feet is now digging in. If I lift my toes up, you can see I fall forward. I have to stop myself and literally dig those toes in. And I believe Lena calls it eagle claws. So you want to dig into that ground as far as you can. A lot of times I keep this bent, but if it's only targets in front of me, I'll even straighten that out to really solidify that structure. Having it bent allows me to be able to transition a little better. But if it's all linear in front of me, I'm gonna keep that straight to really solidify that structure and lock me in place, right? So structure is very important behind the gun. The second thing that I'd like to talk about is what your non-firing hand is doing. There are a few techniques in this, right? Some people will hold their belt. I don't like this because their elbow can be loose and could be open. And if I even do this a little bit, it'll affect my sights, right? Some people will put their hands in a pocket, or some people will just hold it here. This is okay, right? But it's a really weird position to me. I feel like I want to be more compact by having this all sealed in, and that completely stabilizes me. And I feel like I'm hugging my body to be able to complete the upper body structure. We talked about the lower half, which is your legs. Now I want to add my upper body and tighten that all up. By tightening this all up, brings my shoulder forward, brings me locked into position, and then again, enhancing the ability to mitigate that recoil from the gun in front of me and all that pushback, allowing me to possibly shoot faster, subsequent shots a little bit more accurately and more consistently. So number 3, the gun performance. The biggest thing about shooting one hand is that you no longer have that support hand grabbing the gun and sealing it tight with both pressures on each side, allowing for the gun to perform better. Now that I take that hand away, I have to mitigate myself, throw my shoulder in there a little bit more, as opposed to being more square like this, like my shooting stance. As you can see, I actually blade out and throw my shoulders out there because I want this skeletal structure, not necessarily using muscle, as much muscle as I'm using to get in this compact position. I want more skeletal, so I'm absorbing more here. And the reason for this is when I do this, or if I'm a little bit more square to the gun, what happens to the gun is when it recoils, it's gonna hit my structure with my forehand, and then it's essentially gonna drive my gun in a circular pattern. And I don't want that circular pattern with the recoil of the gun moving away from my structure, because I always have to bring it back. That's another variable that I don't wanna account for. So what I need to do is make it more linear, drive my shoulders in, and now the gun goes up and down, or at least a lot more linear. And when it's linear, it's a lot more predictable. As you can see, I'm mimicking the movement of what my recoil would be, but both legs bent. If I straighten this out, it'll just be here, right? So the difference is if I both legs bent, I can mitigate my recoil here, and I'm a lot more mobile in terms of transition. But if I lock myself in, it's gonna stay right here in my upper body, and me just being tight, tightening up my core and driving my shoulders in will allow for my gun to have that more consistent pattern in recoil. The last but not least, trigger. Trigger is really the big thing that allows me to be able to make my shots consistently. It's the last consciously moving body part before the projectile leaves the muzzle. It can affect whether negatively or positively of where that muzzle projectile goes. We talked about the body that mitigates the recoil. Now I have to, and that allows me to go faster, because if the quicker my gun returns to my zero position, to where my sights are on target, the faster I can essentially shoot. With that said, if I have certain targets that are harder, I have to manipulate my trigger differently. And when I say that, this is one trick that was shown to me a long time ago, and it made a huge difference to my one-handed shooting. And really, all the technique is, from my shooting stance, from coming over here, instead of pulling straight, trying to create the straight pattern, as what most people say, pull the trigger straight back to the rear, right? I'm gonna essentially, without changing my grip, I'm gonna essentially move my finger in deeper into the trigger well, right? So now essentially, instead of this, I'm gonna move my finger deeper into the trigger well, and I'm actually gonna pull from the left side corner, curling my finger towards whatever structure I have left. So if I point at the camera, you can see that the straight towards me, this is not where my structure is, but if I curl my finger in this angle, I am pulling towards my structure. If I pull that finger towards my structure, it'll allow me to be able to mitigate any push movement from the gun, as opposed to just pressing straight. Pressing straight works when I have both equal sides of pressure from two hands shooting. But now that I have one hand shooting, I have to now counteract that and try to pull it in this angle. And where this matters is when you're doing fast, when you're really not being as careful as you are with your trigger, when we're trying to chase both time and accuracy. This is where it makes a difference, because now I won't have that effect of pulling or pushing the gun. I'll have more of a steady pull, because I'm pulling towards my structure. And even if I mess it up a little bit, or a little bit more not as good of a trigger pull, I can still support it with my structure, because I have my whole body behind that in the right angle. So again, what it looks like normally is this, where people pull straight back to the rear. All I do is I make a simple adjustment of pulling my finger further into the trigger, and then I will pull from this left side right here, and I'll feel that giving me another stimulus to look for. And that's the only thing that I really focus on when I'm shooting one-hand shooting. The sights can be moving a little bit, right? And I don't really care about that, because I'm not trying to shoot bullseye type shooting. However, when I'm shooting fast, the only thing I look for is that left side of that trigger, allowing me to consistently pull it towards the right side of my structure. I went in the drills app, I created a little bit of a drill for this particular skill set that I'm going to work, which is one-hand shooting. I'm going to use the circle as what I call alpha, because I want a smaller target to work this in. And I'm going to show you guys how I utilize the timer to allow me to learn how to do a couple of these things. The biggest thing I'm trying to measure right now is my ability to cycle my finger to the outside of that, feeling that little stimulus, allowing my structure to return me to the center of that target each and every single time. The timer is set up right now with 5 sets, so I'm going to expect to fire 5 rounds. Every single one of them has 1 shot limit. So it's gonna give me another buzzer right after basically I fire that 1 shot, and I don't have to reset it. I just have to touch it once. Once it sets me off, I'm gonna fire 1. I'm gonna reset and prep, feel that trigger. The next buzzer is gonna go. I'm gonna fire 1, and it's gonna go only as fast as I decide to shoot. And right now, obviously, since I'm just learning it like you would just take your time to do it correctly, because the most important thing right now is to do things correctly, not necessarily fast. And once we get to familiarize ourselves with this particular way of pulling the trigger and then seeing the results on target, then we start picking up the speed. And the speed comes now for us paying attention to how my gun is recoiling and returning back onto the target. So this is how it's gonna go. All right, so we're gonna go hot, we're gonna shoot, and the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna establish my structure. I'm already gonna be in it. I'm gonna put my foot forward, lock this leg back. So we're gonna go hot. I'm gonna press the timer. It's gonna give me a 2-second delay. I'm already gonna be aimed in. Safety is gonna be down. Trigger's gonna be already, I'm gonna feel that left side trigger already. And that's all I'm gonna do is find that left side trigger, and I'm gonna do it slowly, exaggeratedly for now, to be able to show you guys that the timer will only react as fast as I shoot. If I start shooting faster, the timer will also pick up its pace. So we're gonna exaggerate the slowness for now, just to kind of see if we can do it right. So here we go, I'm aimed in. My bottom half is already in position. My toes are digging into the ground, my left leg is straight, my shoulders punch forward, and the only thing I have to do is push my hand out here and tighten it up. Here we go. So now I'm gonna look up and I have a pretty decent group on target. To me, I'm gonna consider that all alpha. I fired an extra round there just for good measure, just to wanted to see it, but it's all alpha, everything feels pretty good. And so once I feel this, and I do this a couple of times, constantly thinking about that trigger, the sight's return actually was really good. I didn't have to make any adjustments. I might just tighten up my hug a little bit more. When I tighten that up, it should also tighten up my return on target. The problem with that was I was expecting to shoot slow. And so when I expected to shoot slow, I didn't really hug myself. I'm gonna try to tighten it up. I'm gonna do that again, and I'm gonna repeat the same exact drill. And this is what I would do, and I would constantly study how my gun's returning on target, how I'm pulling the trigger, and if I can still sense or at least consciously think about that left corner of that trigger. The more I do the thinking right now, the less I will do it later on, especially in matches or when it's demanded of me to do it. So the grouping's good on target so far, and I'm gonna continue to do this. I'm gonna exaggerate more of that pull, and the timer again will give me the pace that I get. It's up to me whether I speed up or slow down. It really doesn't matter. It's just gonna record that one shot, and then we can keep going. So now the next thing that I do is, now that I'm comfortable with it, I'm gonna start speeding up my shots. I'm gonna, again, maintain and pay attention to my structure, allowing me to be able to create that gun linear pattern. I'm gonna set my structure up, I'm gonna hug myself tightly, and then I'm gonna use the same exact drill that we had already set up, right? Now we're gonna do 5 rounds, same exact thing, aimed in, and the only thing I'm gonna do is pick up my shots, my splits for shot to shot, and see if I can still really feel that trigger in the corner and see if I'm pulling it correctly. All right, here we go. This particular drill, it doesn't take long for you to get used to it, as long as you're focused on one thing, how that trigger goes back to that one corner and your movement of how to pull that. I'm literally just focusing on this. You can see I'm already putting a dent into my trigger. I'm focusing on the corner of that trigger as I pull reset, prep, boom, reset, prep, boom. It will allow for my structure to go into work essentially overtime, because now I'm pulling into this side as opposed to pulling straight. When I pull straight, there's nothing supporting it on this side. So what essentially happens, people start pulling way to the left or low left with one hand shooting. It is the same exact concept when you're shooting left-handed. Now you don't have structure much over here or over here. You're structured over here. Learn to pull that trigger in this direction as opposed to pulling straight back to the rear, pulling with this knuckle versus pulling with this knuckle, right? Pulling straight back to the rear, as opposed to this one, I will curl it and I'll pull it, and you can see the angle is going towards my structure, allowing me to be able to run the gun a little bit more sloppily, but yet maintain better hits on target. So now I'm gonna integrate my draw to this same technique. I'm gonna come from the holster now, same exact setup, right? The first buzzer, and like I said, the beauty about this timer is that I don't have to set a timer or part-time to chase. It is gonna be up to me to set the pace, and the timer will just react to it because it's one shot. After one shot, it's gonna recycle itself, and I'm gonna wait for the next buzzer to make sure that I have it ready, the trigger is still ready, in order for me to make sure, hold myself accountable that I'm doing things correctly. The trigger is gonna be the most important thing here, and all I'm gonna do is repeat that cycle over and over. But this time around, I'm gonna show you guys 2 different styles. I'm gonna come from this position, I'm gonna stand erect, right? Standing straight up. A lot of the international shooters, we always stand straight up like this. And then I'm gonna come to the draw and then go right into my position. And the second thing is I'm already gonna be in position, and then I'm gonna establish my draw. And you can see the difference there will be my first shot, because the first one will at least require me a little bit more stability depending on how sloppy I am getting into position or how smooth I am. The more weight I put in my front foot, the lighter this foot lands, the less it affects my shooting hand, right? But the more I back up into it, the more I end up slamming, causing some sort of an unpredictable movement, which will essentially eat up time. So that's what the two things that I'm going to need to point out. The second that I'm already deciding that I'm going to shoot right hand, most of my weight's already going to be on this right leg. I call it my post leg. I'm posting up on it already. Whether I'm standing straight up, I'm just going to shift one side already. The second the buzzer goes, you can see me, I'm going to push my leg forward, and then I'm just going to land softly while I draw, and then eventually it looks something like that, as opposed to people that'll stand straight up and they'll essentially back into it. And when you back into it, it will cause an extra jerky movement on the gun, which I don't really want. I want to try to avoid any extra excess movement, as one-hand shooting is already tough enough for all of us. All right, so once you do this a couple times, you get enough data, maybe 10 reps of doing this, right? Even just a few reps of me doing this just now start feeling really good. Like, I wish I did a lot more of these drills that work specifically on a skill set, right? Not master the skill set, not the drill, but this drill allows me to target a specific deficiency, which is my trigger. With the app, it shows you the hit factor, the targets, and the total time. As you can see, the more comfortable I got, I didn't miss outside the circle, which is a good day. As the better I got, the faster I started to react, the higher the hit factor will start to go. And then you can see my reaction time, the lower my overall time becomes, because I'm reacting faster and faster to the shooting. I'm able to manipulate my trigger. The biggest thing you want to measure here is your time going down, but my alphas and my hits maintain the same. Eventually, you're going to start finding that gray area where you start to fail a little bit, and you start to, because you were going too fast. Now rethink, and when you start to see that failure, start to rethink. Am I still pulling the trigger correctly? Is my placement on trigger finger still correct on the trigger? Those are the two factors that I'm going to get. And then, as well as your structure, am I able to return the sights back on target, or is it taking a longer time because it's doing some sort of circular motion as opposed to a linear motion? Then you get to play with that. And then eventually, the more you work this, you will find out a specific technique for you. My technique is the hard shell that I create to be able to mitigate that recoil. You might have a little softer shell, a little bit more bent, and you might like this, right? But every single one of us is not built the same. Some of us are heavy set, some of us are a little bit lean. It's all good. Some of us are strong with our hand. It's all different, but this is the basics and the principles of it. Lean forward, good structure, and linear pattern is what I'm looking for, not necessarily any excess movement on target. Okay, so we reset up the drill a little bit. We gave ourselves a little bit more reset time, because this time around, we're gonna show you guys what it looks like from the draw. There's two ways to do it. One, standing straight up, as most international matches start, or the other one in USPSA, sometimes we can start in already the ready position. What I gotta be careful here is when I'm starting in this position is the ability to keep my structure, to get into my structure quickly without disturbing any excess, or without adding any excess movement onto the target. So one of the tricks I like to do is I like to post up on one leg, the strong leg that I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna lean into it as I push my foot back. As you can see, by doing this, it allows me to be able to extend, but not necessarily have any excess movement. But if I just back into it and stomp this foot, it'll create that excess movement, which buys time, which I don't want, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pay attention to that, and I'm gonna fire 2 rounds on each target. Still the same exact thing. The drill is basically the same, except I added a longer reset so I can reholster after 2 rounds. It's gonna be boom, boom. I'm gonna feel the way my trigger feels. Obviously, I'm gonna exaggerate it and slow down a little bit to begin with. Here we go. Stand by. Stand by. Stand by. Stand by. Again, looking at the app, I did 5 reps on that particular run. The average drill time was 1.37 seconds. They're kind of like that, shooting one hand, keeping in a really nice tight circle on target, and what you'll see. I started off a little bit slow. It started off about 1.5, a little bit over 1. As I started to get comfortable, I started to push a little bit. I started to pay attention to how I was extending and retracting at the same time, and paying attention to how my sight settled and how quickly I got my finger on the trigger in the right placement. And as you can see, the trend was my time started to get slow. up faster. It went down on time. It kind of got plateaued, right? So I can work on that. And you can see also my hit factor went skyrocketing up. And that's what we're looking for here, is always trying to measure, having some sort of info to go by, not just kind of by feel. Now we have data to prove it back in an app, and we can always look this up. And next week, if I dry fight enough this week in terms of my positioning and draw and setup, I may get quicker. Now I might average at 1.3. Now maybe average at 1.27. And that's what we're looking for, small increments of development. Sometimes it's huge. Some of you guys that started out at 2 seconds, you might get a half-second shave right away. But near the end, when you're finally done losing all that weight and you're just trimming the fat now, you're looking for 0.0 something, 0.1 something development. And every single time you practice, now you can go back and you have that 100% that you exactly know what it would be. So in the match, now you know at this distance, accuracy wise, I can hit a 1.2 second draw, strong hand, standing straight up. All right, so utilize the drill, utilize this strong hand, one hand shooting technique with that trigger. It'll allow you to be more successful out there. Give it a shot, comment below, let me know what you guys think about it.